And
that's what's really, in fact, not saying anything, but I'm a member of a club, and part of my initiation with them is you do a project. I know this is getting weird here, right? So,
all right, let's see where this goes.
all right,
This is about to get real interesting.
well, what it was is at the club, I recommended we get an AED.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So at the club, we have an AED, and it just so happened the other day I'm in charge of their now research and CPR and the AED. And I explained to them, same thing. I said, in a full arrest in the United States, it's sad, but 60% of the people don't get any type of pre-hospital CPR. And on top of that, only less than 18% ever have an AED applied. So I said, to be honest with you, at our club, now I'd rather you arrest at our club than at home.
Correct.
Because here I know you'll get immediate, even if it's compression-only CPR, at least you'll get CPR, compression started, and we have an AED.
Yeah.
So I said, believe it or not, your chance of survivability at the club probably is at least twofold, if not upwards of greater than that, just because of doing that.
Yes.
And as you said, with a lot of departments, even if you're, EMTBs, like you said, they can start CPR, they can get the rescue pump, they can do the other devices, and they can go ahead and shock, because again, that's what's going to make a difference initially, and then we know the rest. And just as much as now we talk about termination resuscitation in the field, I mean, everyone thought we had that special epinephrine that resuscitates people versus the epinephrine they were using, and it's like, no, not special at the hospital. Rather you stay and do your thing.
Right. Turns out
you're
it's
the ones that are going
right?
to, you guys most likely are the ones that are going to bring not just a heart but a brain back.
Right.
Once you bring them into me, it's going to be tricky.
Well, I think that's the one thing that I don't think we've talked a lot about, and I think I've mentioned too, is in prior episodes I talked about most recently was steroids, right? We talked about how long does it take that steroid to have onset and how important it is in our COPD patients to have steroids, and what the delay is from a 911 call, EMS arrival, to when I can get that medication to the patient. So by the time you guys see me, and I know that it's frustrating for a lot of squads when you guys bring me an asystolic patient, and then we listen to a report, and you say, yeah, phone call was 45 minutes ago.
Yep.
We've done CPR. Maybe I was there as VFib. We shocked it, and it's been asystole for 35 minutes. We're just going to call it because we know there's not a good neurological outcome for that patient.
Right.
And I know that's kind of sometimes demoralizing to a lot of EMS providers. They're like, but we worked so hard on this patient, and all we're going to do is you're going to come here and we're going to declare them dead.
And that's why I try to emphasize to them again. And then we've done that with we're trying to get the community outreach, get hands-only CPR, get more AEDs out there, get those things started. Then when the EMTBs EMTBs show up, I have departments that are, I have the gradation of all volunteer,
of course,
half volunteer, professional to career. Again,
sure,
I don't want to say, so are they volunteer or career? I have the departments that are career that are all medic. But again, it's like I said, and our guys know, like I said, in first on a full arrest, they don't even bring in the med bag, actually.
No ALS stuff, really.
Because they already know it's going to be the other things that'll make a difference. Now, I have to admit, we have enough personnel on that department where the ladder company shows up, brings in everything else secondarily. And some people have said, well, why not just bring in everything? And I said, because if it's physically there, you're going to focus on it. And I want you to focus on these tasks. So that's why I said, don't worry about it. We have enough personnel. You don't need to drill them right away. You don't need to give the epi right away, except in peds. I mean, with Dr. Antevi, A, B, C, D, arrive, bag, compress, drill, epi. That's its own podcast. But in talking about the adult full arrest, we do try to make them focus on good CPR, active compression, decompression CPR. Now we're doing the heads up because we want to decompress the pressure in the brain and actually save more patients neurologically and not just start the heart. So kind of, again, like I said, it's a bundle.
Yeah. Well, and it
starts, again, with bystander CPR and AEDs. It's 1,000% true.
And it sounds like, you've even gone so far as to reimagine how you deploy the equipment
Yeah.
to,
Oh, yeah.
to optimize when it's going to get deployed. And so earlier you were talking about a tiered system, and tier
Right.
1 was you bring in essentially that BLS kit, right?
Right, we call it tier 1 bags,
Tier 1, right.
tier 2, and then...
And then what's the tier 2 and 3 look
Well,
like?
that's what I meant by tier 1 bags. On a standard adult arrest would be tier 1 bags is the Elegard airway bag, so it has rescue pump in it, it has my eye gels in it, and we have everything positioned and how we do it. Also, then would be the monitor for defibrillation and monitor interpretation. Our guys know then oxygen. They also know for me though suction, because I'm sure as Dr. Hill knows,
We've all been burned.
the time you need suction is always 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. That's,
So, and they kind of joke about it. If I'm in the hallway at Green Fire and I go up to a fire medic and say, "What do we love at Green Fire?" They'll say, "Suction." And they really, if they hear this, they're going to roll over, because it's true. Because I
Right.
said, when you need suction is always 5
too
minutes
late.
ago.
Right, yeah.
So
You
they
should
know
have heard
that.
earlier when we talked about airway preparation. You're prepared to fail. And if
Yeah,
you're prepared to fail, you're going to be
Right, yeah, so and that's exactly it. So that's why I said those are tier 1 mission critical. Tier 2 then is Lucas, because now I'm going to switch over to Lucas, but I don't use
Transition.
Lucas right away.
Yep.
Unless they're in a bed, and
Right,
I
right,
said
right.
if they're going to a nursing facility, they know to bring in
know
it,
to bring the
because
tier
then
2
that
stuff in,
upgrades
yep.
Lucas. But if you have Lucas sitting there and it's a standard arrest, you're like, well, can't we click Lucas
right
in
there.
yet?
It's right there.
Yeah,
It's right
paramedic
there.
Lucas.
He's
is
ready
not-
to
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So I said,
Arm day.
distracting. And then also I said, people are so into, well, we always used to start lines and give them epi. Then I'm like, no, you got a lot of other things to do first. And if the med bag's sitting right there with your IO in it and everything, you have a tendency to, you're not
Of course.
focusing on
Of
those
course.
other things. Important, just not tier 1 equipment. So that's what we consider tier 2 then would be who's bringing in Lucas and who's bringing in the med
In the
bag.
meds.
We actually even, and I call it a choreographed dance, because it really is a choreographed dance, right? You know, we all talk about pit crew for running a full arrest. We actually call it choreographed dance. That's what that first 5 minutes is. And in our protocol, we even color coded it. So I know if I'm on the primary med unit, if I'm in search and if I'm the driver versus passenger seat versus et cetera, you already have assigned roles of what you're supposed to be bringing in and what you're supposed to be doing. Just as much as at the bottom of the sheet, it'll mention that Lucas is coming in and it's color coded different in black, because that's actually the ladder company is going to, the ladder company's going to know once they get there behind you guys, you already have tier 1 equipment. Even without talking to you, they're going to go over to the squad, and they know most likely Lucas is still in there and the med bag's still in there. So they know the minute they get on scene of an arrest, they go to the
grab that
squad,
equipment, yeah.
they're going to grab tier 2 equipment, and the first thing they're going to say to the primary people inside is, hey, what else do you need? We brought in Lucas in your med bag. But it's I wanted to try to get it as best as possible, which, again, I run in the field, I know what it's like, but almost kind of like a surgical suite where the surgeon puts their hand out, and
the tools
you have
there.
such a great surgical nurse working with you, you don't even say what tool you want, and it's almost already in
In your hand, sure.
So they are, and like I said, again, I do. We call it a choreographed dance, the first 5 minutes, where they literally almost don't even have to talk to each other because they know who's doing what and why. I mean, the first person doing hands-on CPR already knows Elegard person. First thing they're going to do is hand me the rescue pump. Once I get the rescue pump, I already know they're going to want to try to get the tube and ITD. Now, once we're doing those, we even got it to the point of I put my anterior pad on, lift, Elegard comes in underneath, posterior pad
goes on,
lower them down. First thing we do is we call it a quick look snap. I'm going to take a quick look at the monitor, snap shot, so I can even look at that, try to keep it down to 3 to 5 seconds or less, then I'm off the chest. They just, like I said, they kind of have this choreographed dance that they do and trying to expedite everything. So, and they've done well with it.
What does the handoff look like in the ER then? Are you leaving the patients with this if they're...
Actually, that's a really good point, because what happened is then all of a sudden we're bringing patients in.
If I saw this thing coming, I don't know what it was. I'm like, what?
Device.
Right.
So part of our process was we actually invited the EMS representatives of each of our local hospitals in to see what we do, to see the device. I have to say, Dr. Lurie's people actually give you posters and things that you actually give to each of the local ERs so that they post it in their resuscitation bays so it's not a foreign thing, although, you know how that goes, it's still going to be
Right,
a
yeah.
foreign thing. But we actually did. We had their coordinators come out. We actually worked with all of them to get a better understanding of what we're doing. On top of that, we went ahead to the ERs, talked to their staff, and posted these posters in each of their resuscitation areas of, hey, what is this heads-up thing? Why are we doing this? Et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, we went through that process, too. Most of the time, like, probably as Dr. Hill knows, usually if a squad comes in and they're using Lucas, we're usually like, oh, no, leave your Lucas here. Right?
They patiently wait until
leave
we
your
are done
Lucas
with
here.
it.
Yeah. So when they saw us coming in with these other devices, they were kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I saw the poster. I'm not quite sure what you're doing.
Sure.
And actually, I hate to say, but to a certain extent, we actually, when we did this, we actually had to educate some of the ER docs, as in, because one of them was like, well, wait a minute, why don't you just put their head down? And I'm like, oh, no,
Right,
you
right.
gotta go,
Correct.
And then we kind of explain what the device is, why it does what it does, and then they're like, oh, okay.
Well,
yeah.
it's. I think the device is counterintuitive. Heads up CPR
right,
is
yes.
counterintuitive,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
A patient's got a low blood pressure. What do? Put them heads up? No. You
Put 'em
push that
heads
on their
down.
head, yeah.
Right.
But once you explain the physics behind it, you're like, oh,
And it's not like heads up.
No.
So, exactly.
one day maybe we'll do like 90 degrees.
Yeah, how the process
You're just
works.
standing.
Yeah.
Stand up.
We're going to do standing
Like the
CPR.
old backboard takedown.
Yeah.
So,
Be feet up or something. CPR.
but you're right. We had it, and actually, when we were doing this, they recommended that. They said, now invite these people
Oh, yeah,
here.
it's gonna be
Here's
foreign.
why. Go to the different ERs, hang up the posters, let them know what's going on and
And
why
should
you're
they
doing
get
this.
ROSC, is
and-
this thing X-rayable if you need?
Yes. Yeah. It actually can go to the cath lab.
Oh.
That was always the big question to us was, can we take this into the cath lab? Is it safe to have in there and work on the patient while they're in it? And the answer is yes. Yep. Yes. You're able to use it in the cath lab, X-ray, et cetera. So, yep. Yeah,
So
excellent. Yeah, excellent questions. And we, like I said, there's still, our people are pretty comfortable now. I haven't had, I think we've done it enough now that it's kind of nice because now they really are starting to focus on how and the staff, our crew wants to know, hey, how do our numbers
How do they
look? How
look,
are we
right, yeah.
doing? They all talk. It's
shared,
change.
shared goal now.
Yeah, what they had and stuff.
Because they're
and
not
hey,
competitive at all. They're
Not
not
at all.
That's not a thing,
Code
right?
stats have been amazing.
Right.
So
What about its weight overall? Do you know?
I would be guessing, but I would have to say around 20. For some reason, 28 pounds stands out in my mind, but I'm not sure why. So it's not onerous, but I would have to look it up. So like I said, honestly, I'll be honest, they've never really complained about how heavy it is to take in or any problems like that. So
So it's lighter than the existing stuff.
so it's not. Well, the one thing
This
they
is
like
heavier
is,
than this.
yeah, one thing they like is, in the old days, you brought in 20 bags with you,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, no. So now that it's cut down to, and the bag it comes in has the straps.
Shoulder straps.
Yeah.
So all they do is they just know, hey, I'm Eligard bag guy today, so I just know once we get on scene, I'm going to strap that
Gotta
on.
sling
I'm going
that,
to
yeah.
carry that in. The
Does
other
this
guys,
carry Lucas as well, or just the backboard?
just the backboard on.
Okay, so Lucas comes in separately.
Yes,
Yeah.
Lucas has its own. Now it's in
Yeah.
like a
Hard case.
hard
Case,
case,
yeah.
striker, hard case.
We call it the
Yeah.
turtle shell.
Yeah, yeah. The Lucas would
Eggshell,
come
yeah.
in when separate. So, but this thing, like I said, they strap it on their back, and if it's in a nursing facility, one guy can even just carry Lucas in at the same time carrying this, while the other people are carrying the monitors
The other stuff,
and then
huh?
suction. Remember, you gotta have your suction.
And
So-
internet says about 20 pounds.
Is it 20? Okay.
The interwebs,
For some
yep.
reason, in the 20s, I know kind of rang a bell, but never had a problem with anyone saying that it was too much weight. And like I said, we're cutting back on, it's
Because you're having your tier 1 come in, they're not
Right.
bringing in your
5
drug
million
bag.
things.
Right?
Right.
Correct.
So basically, it's mission critical. How I want you to run this arrest and the initial death throes of it, no pun intended, and I want you to, what you absolutely have to have. If it's anything else, don't worry about it.
Right.
And then that's how we pruned it down to that point. So.
Now, first of all, I just want to point out that your point of you're probably safer at the club, that should be used to all wives. It's like, I need to go there. There's an AED there.
Well, it's a sportsman's club.
My survivability is going to be better if I go to the
I
club.
better define this. It's a sportsman's club. So, and their drawing is tonight, by the way. So, but it's a sportsman's club, and like I said, it just so happens we just did their AED CPR training, and really, really, really focus on it. I know I'm sure Chief Powell, I'm sure Dr. Lurie, and I know Dr. Antevi loves. Gosh, people have just got to do something. Before we get there is really what's going to make a big difference. So you bundle all that together, we'll see how we're doing.
All right, so my sarcastic point about the club aside, early on you talked about a lot of this flies at the convention, in the face of the convention of AHA. And what... So, I think I'm on your side here. Just let me ask the question. So, oftentimes that's held as like gospel because it's not necessarily there's not necessarily an advocation for it in AHA. It's somehow not worth doing or isn't worth our time to do these things. And just kind of speak to that a little bit. Is at some point we have to try things beyond what that recommendation is.
And no, I love American Heart Association. Yep. I've been an instructor. Do this, do that, but theirs is more of a nice, acceptable base of really what's going to happen. Now, my first point with AHA would be, how often does their guidelines come out? Well, every 5 years, right? Well, stuff happens in between.
Nothing changes in 5 years.
Right. And things that happen in between may actually already show promise or helping. So why am I waiting? But that's just what AHA has to, they had to decide how they're going to do this, and that's how they just said, hey, these are the decisions we have to make. These are the compromises we have to make. We're doing this for the greater good as far as a good, solid baseline. Are there things out there promising? Sure. Could we do it in a year? Maybe, but we've already agreed that it's every 5 years we change our standards, et cetera. So I hope people realize that definitely American Heart Association's guidelines and everything else, love them, everything, but you got to push the envelope.
Correct. This is an augmentation of what's established.
Right. And again, don't just be mesmerized by the shiny object. I mean, again, I got into this since 2019.
Right.
And like as you've heard through the podcast, it's been a journey and it's been a process. It's been a journey where we started with this. Then I was like, I'm not sold yet. Then more into it. Sure. Now, okay, I'm accepting of it. Then when we finally, again, the main point was when we instituted it was when at least maybe not AHA having it physically in black and white in their ACLS book, but at least they weren't against it.
Correct.
Then I took the plunge of some of these other things when they got at least FDA approval, where I knew I wasn't, still in the experimental stage. Sure. So, like I said, we got on so early on, I had to wait for some of that process. So, again, you can't, I wouldn't, for AHA guidelines, great baseline, great base for the greater good of trying to train and teach people, but I don't want to wait 5 years in between if something's out there,
to
has
improve,
proven itself, et cetera, and then proceed from there. So
we're very used at UH to pushing those things, and then and then people go, pushing back on us is like, well, the book basically the current the current book doesn't say this. Hey, somebody has to take the next step.
I'm not saying, but that's what we
that's
what we loved at Altman.
Right.
was joining your guys'
Right.
system was, again, I mean, my coordinator, Mark Rosanovich, actually after one of the very first meetings we ever had at the medical director's table, medical director's dinner or whatever, he just, on the ride home, he looked at me and goes, "Oh my God, what a breath of fresh air to be around people that really, truly have a passion about EMS, really want to push the envelope." Just, even banter back and forth. I mean,
Right.
Again, I love it when one side says this, another side counters this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're not a table of guys and
Robots.
gals that are just yes men or yes gals people. You know what I'm saying? I love it when there's, I want someone to challenge. And like I said, again, I got my MD, not my GOD. They come up with a great idea. I'm like, a lot of our fire medics have approached me about different things, and I'm like, oh.
Oh, let's try it, or let's look into it, or
Yeah. Now I can't promise you I'll always do it.
Sure.
I can promise you I'll always listen.
Yeah.
They know
We'll
that.
look into it,
Is my adage is I will always listen. I'll look into it. I can't promise you we'll always do it, but please let me know. And like I said, they're the ones that fine-tuned a lot of the process and that. They came to me and said, "Hey, this is working. This is a little cumbersome." I'm like, "Okay, well."
That's refreshing to hear that was their takeaway from the first meeting,
Yeah.
because I figured for sure it was like,
Oh,
what did we
no.
get ourselves into? All those people crazy.
Give Mark a call right now. He'll let you know. No, he just looked at me and I was like, he goes, "I know you." He goes, "I'm used to you talking with you, and you're always looking up articles and trying to go down." He goes, "But it was just like, oh my gosh, all these people were really into this." And then he asked him next time, just off the cuff, and he'll tell you, it was so nice. And then that's what we enjoy down in Canton Altman area, working with you guys, doing that process. Then. Everything else, we're doing a lot more, community outreach and programs and education and accountability, consistency, progressive cutting edge protocols.
Access to care stuff.
Yeah, it just was, it definitely was a breath of fresh air. And that was our first, honestly, literally, that was our first take home from the very first meetings. So, and ever since. So,
Being in it, you always wonder with somebody coming in from the outside. It's like what's their takeaway,
yeah, we were
right?
kind of like,
Because
at first we were a little
we're all
squeamish.
broken
I'm
and we
like,
know it, right? So we don't try to hide it.
No, it was great. And like I said, at first we were kind of new kids on the block. I didn't, do we say much, not say much, and then then Mark always laughs. He's like, "You're never gonna not shut up, anyways."
Right.
And I'm like, "Well, I can't. These people, man, they're into this.
Yeah.
This is great." So we definitely very much enjoy it, and I know our patients are 1,000% benefiting from it. I can definitely
fantastic.
tell you that. And all our EMS personnel too. They're excited. Like I said, now when we first talked about how many squads do you have? Like I said, if you build it, they will come, and they definitely are starting to.
That's awesome.
They're already knocking on the door saying, "Hey, we heard what some of the people that stuck around sounds interesting."
Yeah.
So no, it's big plus.
Nor is it a static thing, because as we sit here and speak, we've already got already a dozen pages of changes we need to start hashing out beginning for 24. That process starts.
Which I think is
next
great.
week, on
we
the
just,
20th.
Even in the hallway talking ahead of time when Don did his presentation about disaster and looking over disaster. I was like, yes, someone finally saying the emperor is naked. It's not working. I love that. So just all those different points though. So it's been it's been great actually.
All right. Well, anything else about this process or this system is kind of parting thoughts, or?
The only parting thoughts I have, like I said, people hear about heads-up CPR. I know there's still some controversial things behind it. I don't blame them with that at all. You always want to have a skeptical eye on anything.
Of course.
Definitely, you can't just say, "Oh, okay, we're going to do it." It's definitely a journey. It's going to be a journey for any department that wants to start it. It's then going to become a process. there's many of us that have already kind of went through the ins and outs of what works, what doesn't work. Once you come on board, you can link up with some of those individuals
course,
ahead of time to find out. There's going to be cost, so we talk to them about the different costs of the different devices or how it's used, etc. So there, those are the questions. Obviously, the chief level people are going to be
yeah, of course.
are going to be asking, and I'm very upfront about it. What we went through, and what the costs are going to be, and how do you do it. Again, you don't just need Lucas. You can use the Zoll band. There's ways of doing that, etc. I know I've worked with the people from Zoll also as far as resuscitation academies and things as far as that's concerned. So I would just have to say again, it's definitely going to be a journey for them. Hopefully a much shorter journey since we kind of went through it first. It is going to be a process, but many of us have already gone through the process. So, I had to kind of look at what they had for their protocol and then redesign
Manipulate
it
it
for
to
what we
your-
would
yeah,
use.
yeah.
And then, but again, because once you get into this, you're going to be quarterly talking to each other, sharing statistics and ideas. So we were able to pick each other's brains as far as, like I said, even talking with Dr. Lurie, he's like, oh, you guys, latched on to the first 5 minutes. Oh, yeah, we love that. And then he said, oh, but you mentioned something about you're doing scenarios in a bed. And then he goes, hey, when we go out and talk to people, we're going to tell me about that again.
Tell us
We're
about
gonna,
that, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. So again, we're all learning from each other. So I would just tell the people, again, journey process. Hopefully it'll be a shorter journey, shorter process for you. We've already kind of went through what works, what doesn't work, but it's definitely promising. The numbers, at least for us, look better. They're small, but we are sharing our data. And I just appreciate you guys having me to talk about it and try to get the word out that there's got to be something better out there. So, and I'm sure years from now, I know the Advanced Cardiac Resuscitation Academy with Chief Powell and them, they talk about their moonshot is, hey, by, I forget what it was, 2030, 2050 or whatever, looking back, what advancements can we get to that point?
Right.
And they're already talking about, are you using a blood pressure cuff? Are you monitoring pressures? When is it going to get to the point where we're monitoring other things during an arrest? And
arterial pressure.
Well, we can talk about your art lines
It's
during
right. It's going to be.
recess.
Or
That's
even-
where we're going to have to go.
But like I said, but someone's got to, someone's got to
Gotta
be
push-
out there pressing
push-
the
push-
envelope.
push that a little bit,
Otherwise, right. So
Did
that's
you-
what I
did-
would say about the
Fantastic. Did you have a comment, or were you just
No, I just
trying
think
to
it's
trying to read my
warranted
chickens?
that we mentioned that.
Caleb, anything?
Nope.
Any questions or comments before we break out of here? So
We're good.
Fantastic. Thank you all for watching. And if you like this content, check us out on Facebook. Like us, follow us there. Subscribe on YouTube. As Dr. Hill's already mentioned, there's this information and more at prehospitalparadigm.com. It's
I
not
thought
only
you were going to ask me about getting to the club then or something.
We'll talk about the club
That's
offline.
after.
They don't need to.
That's
Well,
after.
I
I
want to
guess-
go where my survivability is going to be good, and the club sounds
Sportsman's
fantastic.
Club.
Well, I want to know, I guess, in the spirit, are you a turtle?
Am I a turtle?
Yes.
I got nothing, bro.
He's not a turtle. All right.
Okay. I have no
Thanks for
idea.
coming, Doc,
Yeah.
and welcome to UH.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we
Yeah.
appreciate you coming.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Everybody have a good night.